balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, I guess I'm not really too sure what to make of what's happening today, other than the fact that we have had a couple of really good things that have come across. To be honest with you, it's a little bit of a surprise to me. For one particular thing that happened. And I'll get into that here in just a moment. But first, I want to say hello to all of my regulars out there, all of the Whiskey Warrior P1s. Say hello to all of the guests and new folks that might be watching this for the very first time, as well as making sure that I recognize, too, the ones that are here for the first time, like I just said, but also all of you need to understand this is really, really big. Apparently a couple of my regulars over on Rumble were kind of chatting ahead of time, and they essentially said that they have no lives. Well, if that's the case, what does that make me? Because I'm the one that created this thing to bring you guys here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. All right. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get the Pledge of Allegiance going. Tonight, it is Judge Wild. That's right, Judge Wild, W-Y-L-D. He does a short 4 or 5 time stream a day over on Rumble, and you should check it out. He does a couple of different things. He's got snarkiness and news and all kinds of things, and he streams, 15 minutes or so, roughly on each one. He's not like me. He's not a glutton for punishment to do like an hour-long show or whatever, but you should check it out. Go to rumble.com and check out his Intelligent Talk with Judge Wild is one of them, and then he also does like I think some kind of a shopping show or something like that too. So you ought to check him out over on rumble.com, but he tonight is going to lead our Pledge of Allegiance. So please, if you are of mind, stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. And if not, make sure that you put your hand over your heart, of course, and follow along with Judge Wild in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh yeah, hurrah!
Thank you, Judge Wild, for that rousing rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you want to get your version of the Pledge of Allegiance here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself doing it in your style. And once you do that, take that audio file, ship it off to me by emailing it to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. And I will get that into the rotation. Well, hello, Joan, over on Facebook, Joan Lewis Adams. Hi there. Anyway, I got to be careful with the gestures because it'll throw the freaking camera off. So I got to be careful with my gestures and stuff. But anyway, all right. Tonight's sponsor is the theflagshirt.com. That is theflagshirt.com. And as you can see right here, they are really, really interested in getting you a 9/11 Never Forget shirt. Folks, these shirts, I'm wearing one right now. I'm wearing one of their performance tees, which says USA across it. Yeah, I don't know if you can see right here. They are all brilliantly colored, vibrant. and so on and so forth. You really ought to check them out. They've got some great patriotic styles. Go to theflagshirt.com and take a look at all of their stuff. They've got men's, women's, kids, accessories, socks, hats. They even have a tie or two, I think, as well. And they're gearing up for the election as well. Looks like they added a spot right there in the red. You can see right here, they have election gear coming up. That's coming up a lot faster than what we would expect. It's like 60 days, roughly, maybe less. Anyway, don't forget to go and check them out. Go to theflagshirt.com. And hey, if you order $75 or more worth of gear, they'll give you free shipping. If you don't want to do that, I have a special for you. You can go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and get yourself a promo code that you put in at checkout in the promo code box to get yourself $5 off your order. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, where you can take that code, drop it in the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. So, a couple of things happened that were good for us, but before we get into that, I've just got a question. Does anybody actually believe anything that Tim Walz says anymore? I mean, seriously, the guy's been caught not once, not twice, not 3 times, but multiple times fudging. And by fudging, I mean lying. And some of these things are just, I mean, it's getting pretty monotonous. We have the whole DUI thing. We have the whole going to Iraq thing. We have the being a retired command sergeant major thing. We have him, lying about the kids getting, caring about the kids and getting them food and stuff like that. By the way, he's under investigation now, or he's actually a person, I think, of interest in the investigation on that program that he keeps touting about the kids. Well, now the Washington Free Beacon has actually found out yet another thing that Tim Walz has been lying about, or, well, fudging, inflating the truth a little. So here in the Washington Free Beacon, apparently Walz repeatedly claimed that he was nearly finished with a doctorate degree for years after he actually disappeared from the university. So apparently he attended St. Mary's University of Minnesota up until 2004, but had been saying all the way up to 2011 that he was close to getting his doctorate degree. Yeah. That would talk about padding your freaking resume here. So here from the piece, you can see it. As recently as 2011, Walz claimed in an official biography for his campaign and congressional office that he was on the verge of completing a doctorate in education a decade after he had enrolled in a doctorate program at St. Mary's University of Minnesota in the small town of Winona. Now, the university was questioned by the Washington Free Beacon, and they told the Washington Free Beacon that their last records indicating that Walz was an active student dated back to 2004. So he did go. Okay, he was apparently enrolled in the doctorate program. Okay, because here's the statement from the school. We can confirm that Governor Walz attended St. Mary's from 2001 to 2004 in our doctorate level ED program, which again, that would be the same ED program or EDD program. I don't know. Is that what you call it? The EDD program? Anyway, that would be the same program that Jill Biden, you know, the doctor who supersedes all doctors, who is the greatest doctor of ever doctors of all doctors that have ever doctored ever before. But anyway, they, he apparently was in the program, but, he did not complete the degree program. Wait, hold up. There seems to be a commonality here. There seems to be a commonality. This man apparently starts things, but never finishes them. I mean, he started his doctorate degree, never finished it. He started his command sergeant major courses, never finished those. Yeah, anyway. So Walls apparently continued to claim all the way through 2011 that he was an active student, nearly finished with his doctorate at St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota. His congressional biography put it. 4 years, of course, after he arrived on Capitol Hill. Guys, how is it that we as a, I mean, let's take a second and think about this. I seem to recall Joe Biden attempting to run for president twice before, one of which he failed to disclose and consistently lied about the fact that he was not at the top of his class, that he did not graduate with 3 degrees, that he often was caught plagiarizing speeches and all of these other things. And that actually mustered him out of running for president. And here we have a VP candidate. Let's not even talk about the Madam VP who's running for president right now, but we're talking about the VP candidate. He should be run out of town completely for this. I mean, everything that he says is a lie. Everything he claims to have accomplished seems to be a lie. And I just don't, I don't understand where have we fallen so far down the, I can't even think of a word for it, but how have we gotten to this point where our political leaders, our political candidates are essentially like, it's like, I carried a weapon of war in combat. Yeah, you never went to combat. I retired as a command sergeant major. Yeah, you were only in the situation or in the position as a acting until you actually completed the thing. When I had a DUI, my ear, I couldn't hear anything. Yeah, you were actually blew well over the legal limit. Okay. I mean, seriously, folks, come on. This guy should have been laughed out a long time ago. And why is it that Rahm Emanuel supposedly vetted this guy. What the hell? I mean, I know Rahm Emanuel is one of those guys that never let the crisis go to waste kind of guys. But seriously, do these people think that the American people are so goddamn stupid that we're not going to be able to vet this thing out and dig this shit up? Seriously. Anyway, well, it just goes to show you that he's probably not the best candidate for VP. Anyway. All right. I've picked on him enough. Well, we got some really good news from the Trump camp. And ironically, it was served to us on a platter by that wretched Judge Merchan, or Merchan, however it's pronounced, I don't even care, over in New York. So check this out. Judge Merchan delays the Trump sentencing until after the November election. Now, here's my thoughts. And I could be completely way off base on this, but you need to understand this guy, the judge, his daughter is making all kinds of money, or has made all kinds of money campaigning against Trump. And so think about this. What could be his reasoning for pushing this? I mean, he might say, I had a scheduling conflict. But let's be honest here. Let's be completely honest here. The reason why I think, and again, this is my supposition here, but considering the fact that every time Trump got indicted, every time Trump, and even with the guilty plea, or not the guilty plea, but the guilty verdict, I was confusing Hunter Biden's guilty plea from yesterday. But even with the verdict, a guilty verdict in this court, Trump got bumps in the polls off of each one of these things. So what do you think maybe on the off chance the possibilities are? And for those of you who do betting, I wonder if there's like an over under on this. But what do you think the chances are that he took a look at the polling and said, oh my God, our woman, Kamala Harris, the queen of all queens, the queen of the cackling Kamala chameleon, she's not overtaking him and running away with this thing. This thing is so goddamn close. If I do anything to affect that and we lose in November, we're screwed. So maybe I should just delay it to make sure that I don't do anything to damage the Harris campaign. Because let's be honest, this isn't, I honestly, all of this lawfare, everything that is the lawfare crap that's going on right now, I honestly don't think that they're doing any of this out of any sense of like law and order or any of that kind of stuff. They are doing it for one reason and one reason only, and that is to get Trump. But they know that if he were to go into sentencing on September 18th and get sentenced to go to jail, that would cause a complete bump in the polls based on the past history of every single time that he got either indicted or when the guilty verdict came down on this, even with his civil court cases with E. Jean Carroll, every single time he ended up going up in the polls, or at least staying even, in the polls. So there's no advantage right now that if they're, halfway intelligent, there's no advantage to putting Trump in jail on the 18th. Because it's not going to stop him from running. It's not going to stop him. He's already in the race. He's already been nominated the candidate. None of that is going to change. All of that's over now. They were hoping to get him to tank in the polls and tank in the court of public opinion, and all it's done is made him stronger. So I have a feeling that Judge Merchan is like, you know what? Things are so close right now, and especially as we've seen, even in places like where the Dems are saying that, it's a toss-up race, in places like North Carolina, Michigan, which I said those two in particular for a reason. I'll get to those in just a minute. But even some of those places where there's a possibility that there could be some other factors at play, I personally think he decided, I'm not gonna do this, and pushed it off till the 26th to try and make sure that they don't damage Harris any further. Now, that being said, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. If something happens on the 10th and Harris gets completely shellacked in the debate, and things turn around, don't for any second, don't think that they won't push that and change that date again. At least in my opinion, I don't think they will. But anyway, it's a good thing. So let's just take the victory as it stands. Now, speaking of victories, there's another victory. RFK Jr. scores Major wins for Trump in 2 battleground states. What battleground states might that be? Well, it's North Carolina and Michigan, where they were trying to keep RFK Jr. on the ballot. Now, remember, RFK Jr., when he announced that he was suspending his campaign or dropping out of the race, that he said that in the battleground states, he was trying to take himself off of the ballot, and therefore all of his followers, the people that were giving him the, anywhere from like 2 to 5% of the vote, could go and vote for Trump because that's who he endorsed. Well, for a while there, a couple of these places, Michigan and North Carolina, tried to keep him on the ballot with the idea that if they kept him on the ballot, that people wouldn't actually vote for Trump there. At least the RFK Jr. folks wouldn't vote for there. They would go and vote for RFK Jr., thereby taking away a vote for Trump. Well, that was the intent anyway. RFK Jr. took it to court, battled it, lost in both places, appealed it right away, and won. So now he is going to get taken off the ballot in those 2 states. Thankfully, those appeals courts in the states, they realized what the hell was going on, and they basically gave a double-barreled middle finger to the Democrat-led elections boards that are in those places trying to keep RFK Jr. on the ballot. So anyway, good news. That's good for us. That is good for us in terms of us meaning conservatives. So that is awesome. All right. So tonight I actually have a story before I get into the main part of the program. I actually have a story that falls into the highlighting of America. All right, so I don't know if any of you remember, I talked about this. This is several weeks ago, could even be like a month ago or whatever. But there was a high school in Oklahoma. And this kid who went to the high school has American flags hanging off the back of his truck. Well, the school had gone and tried to punish him for having those flags on the back of the truck. And it turned out that when the news came out that they were going to punish him for that, the rest of the student body, and I won't say everybody, but a good vast majority of the student body, came to school the next day or two and came in and went ahead and had flags off the back of their trucks and cars and stuff. Well, apparently that case gained attention. And it gained attention so much that the Oklahoma state superintendent of schools, Ryan Walters, has now issued new guidance for this. This in Woke Spy. Edmond North High School previously cited a long-standing practice banning all flags, including the Star-Spangled Banner, following criticism over the ban at the end of August. Well, the heightened criticism on social media prompted Republican Superintendent Walters to intervene, and he's now issued new guidance on patriotic displays at public schools. He made a statement on X, and here is the statement. It was flagged and put out by Libs of TikTok. Following Edmond schools telling a student he couldn't fly the American flag, Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters issued new guidelines protecting patriotic displays in schools and students' rights to fly the flag. Walters said in a statement, no school in Oklahoma should tell students they can't wave an American flag. Americans have fought and died for the right to carry our flag, and no student should ever be targeted for exercising that right. Our young people should never have to fear for displaying their patriotism, and I will fight every day so that when our students want to express their love for America, they can do so boldly and proudly. Bravo, State Superintendent Walters. Bravo. Ryan Walters. And here's the full statement right here. You can see it on the screen. I'm kind of scrolling past it, but there's the image of the statement. And also, too, by the way, he reaffirmed the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance in accordance with state law. Every school must lead its students in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance at least once a week. The practice is crucial in fostering a sense of national pride and respect for the country's ideals among students. Bravo, bravo. Hand claps. Well done. So, under the new guidelines, each school district must establish a policy that ensures that the flag of America can be flown without infringement. All students must recite the Pledge of Allegiance at least once a week, I just told you. And while all school districts are required to submit reports detailing their policies are in line with the new guidance. Congratulations. And that is our highlight on America. That is just fantastic. Bravo. I cannot, I'm telling you, this right here. It's stuff like this. It's stuff like this that we need to do across the entire U.S. to take our country back, to take our republic back. That is what must happen. All right. Let me take a break here. Yep. Let me take a break here and tell you about a wonderful thing. We're at 1 year. We're at 1 year out. I told you about this last night, but I'll tell you about him again. Or no, not last night. Last night was Thursday. I told you about this Wednesday. So we've passed the 1 year mark. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN.net. You should check us out. That's our web address and our web home. You can go and listen to us through your browser right there on that. But I want to tell you about a show that is on. It's coming on. Well, actually, yeah, it's coming on when this show ends. It comes on at 8 p.m. Central Time. It's a really, really good show. It's called From the Delta to Beale. And it showcases the music creators with the roots in the Mississippi Delta and their pilgrimage to Memphis, Tennessee, which is, of course, the home of the blues and the birthplace of rock and roll. Featuring music from the original craftsmen of this iconic sound like Son House, Willie Dixon, and the godfather of Delta Blues, Charlie Patton, to those that followed in their footsteps like B.B. King, Ike Turner, and the Memphis Juke Band. We explore the music from Memphis blues labels such as Sun Studios, Stax Records, and that spread their influence up the mighty Mississippi to St. Louis and Chicago and west to Texas. From the Delta to Beale captures the humble beginnings of the blues and of the Dirty Delta, I should say, to its widespread impact across the U.S. and beyond. So go and join Memphis Mark for the show From the Delta to Beale, airing right after this program ends at 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. There is also, for those of you that don't want to listen tonight directly, there's also an encore presentation that occurs as well. I believe it's Sunday at 9 p.m. So you can check that out as well. All right. That's TGRN, True Grit Roots Network with TGRN Blues based out of Austin, Texas. Got to make sure I put that in there. All right. So I did go and see the Reagan movie. And I got to tell you, it took me back. It took me back to the days of Reagan in the 80s. And I'm not quite as old as some who are out there in my my audience, but I can tell you that it took me back to seeing him on TV, listening on the radio and stuff like that. He did speeches, he did communications. He was called the great communicator for a reason. And honestly, whenever you see movies like this, because I mean, this is a biopic or a biopic, however you want to pronounce it. And this was essentially it's a 2-hour long movie, just to kind of give you an idea, but it because of the amount of material that is on this man. Okay. It really only hit a lot of the highlights. And that being said, don't get me wrong. I mean, that sounds a little negative, but that's actually more positive. So just to kind of give you the premise of the movie so that you completely understand, because when we went, there was some question, the way that they presented it in the beginning, there was a little bit of confusion. So the movie itself is not being told from somebody who was supposedly here in the US at the time, but it's being told from the perspective of an ex-KGB agent who was paying attention to Reagan as Reagan was moving up within the ranks with regards to some of the actions initially that he took in Hollywood to combat the communism that was beginning to infiltrate in the, late 50s, early 60s within Hollywood in particular, and then eventually, of course, taking it on in terms of the federal government. And so the narrator of the story is this KGB agent. Now, the KGB agent is played by Jon Voight. There is a lot of good special effects when it comes to like aging people and not aging people. And so they really did a good job, I think, in terms of the makeup. And granted, some people are like, well, I mean, Dennis Quaid doesn't really look like Reagan. They're actually, in this particular picture that you see behind me, okay, there actually isn't like this isn't one of the better ones. There are some photographs of him or some places of him where he does have a resemblance to Ronald Reagan. And so that's the thing. Penelope Ann Miller did a really good job playing Nancy Reagan, I think, with her mannerisms as well. And the overall story, again, like I said, the topic and subject material is just so big that you can't to pare it down into 2 hours is relatively difficult to do, but highly recommend going and seeing it in terms of, seeing what's going on and remembering and experiencing the things that were going on there. Now, they did take a section of the movie in order to try and help set things up where they went through history and certain aspects of history, certain things that were occurring at certain times along the timeline. And so for somebody who is a history buff such as myself, I found it very enjoyable. It glossed on a few things. It made its points quickly. So if you're planning on taking your kids, for an example, to this particular film, you may end up having to backfill or essentially try and connect some of the dots, as I did, because we took my daughter and her boyfriend to the movie. And so it was kind of interesting. My daughter did tell me that she got lost in the beginning because, of course, the beginning covers a lot of the tail end of Reagan's acting career and how he transitioned from acting into politics. But she did say that the movie started picking up once he got into the White House. So she got a little lost in the beginning, which is, I'll admit that was a little bit of a struggle to get through, but they had to do that in order to set up the whole premise, which was the rest of his presidency, how he got into being the president and so on and so forth. But what I wanted to do for you tonight is I wanted to play a couple of my particular favorites out of Ronald Reagan's history. And the first one that I want to bring to your attention is basically the part where he was speaking for Barry Goldwater. And one thing that a lot of people need to understand with him is that he tried running for president before he got elected in 1980. He ran for president 4 years prior and lost. Okay. And lost the nomination, didn't win the nomination. And the movie goes through that as well. So here is my favorite part of the speech, and the speech is A Time for Choosing, that he televised and gave on October 27, 1964 for Barry Goldwater. And in this particular segment, it has my favorite line, which I will admit was missing from the movie. I was expecting to see it, and it was missing. But here, let's go ahead and listen to my favorite little section. And believe me, this entire speech, if you get a chance, you really should check this out on YouTube. You should really go and check this out under the Reagan Library on YouTube. It is a fantastic speech. And I think if you listen through the entire thing, you will find a vast majority, outside of some of the monetary numbers that he quotes within it, a vast majority of the speech could very well apply to today. You could almost 100% recycle that speech and give it today, and it would be literally no different and be completely applicable to today here in 2024. But let's go ahead and listen to this one little section that I find just absolutely fascinating.
But seriously, what are we doing to those we seek to help? Not too long ago, a judge called me here in Los Angeles. He told me of a young woman who'd come before him for a divorce. She had 6 children, was pregnant with her 7th. Under his questioning, she revealed her husband was a laborer earning $250 a month. She wanted the divorce to get an $80 raise. She's eligible for $330 a month in the Aid to Dependent Children program. She got the idea from 2 women in her neighborhood who'd already done that very thing. Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything. Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. Now...
That is my all-time favorite line. I mean, he had a lot of them, believe me, but that there was my all-time favorite line from him, which is basically that our liberal friends, it's not just the fact that they're ignorant, it's just that they know so much that isn't so. Now, I specifically put the first part of that and left it in there so you could listen to the lead up into that particular point. And you need to understand that one of the things that liberalism has been doing, and this applies also to another article if I get to it, but this also applies to the destruction of the nuclear family that seems to be on the Democrats' minds. See, when, FDR created Social Security, when they created the welfare system, when they expanded the welfare system, the push was to make sure that the nuclear family would get destroyed. And the reason, and make it such that those people would end up on the government payroll. Now, that isn't an intention that could, I don't know whether that was the full intent. There is some suggestion that that was the case. But the thing about it is that you need to understand that liberalism and the left in particular, which, by the way, Ronald Reagan, one of his other famous lines that I said, or that I like, is the fact that if socialism and fascism were to come to our shores, and I'm paraphrasing this here, but if fascism were to ever come to America, it would come in the form of liberalism. And he is 100% correct on that. And we need to understand that here in 2024, this is just as important, if not more important, than the entire time between the mid-60s all the way through the 70s into the 80s. And what he is talking about here in terms of the wife wanting to divorce the husband because she can actually get more money being separated from him than being with him. That is the key, and has been the key, to ensuring that we have fatherless homes, that we have the broken family. What happens is they offered up more money if there were not two parents in the household, which is, again, the social fabric, the nuclear fabric that runs our society. Now, there's another video of him that I absolutely love. And in this particular one, ironically, Kamala Harris's parents were in Berkeley, apparently, at the time that this was going on. But this is one of my other favorite scenes of Ronald Reagan. And this was back when he was governor of California. When, yes, California actually was a Republican-run state at one time. But, well, let me just have Ronald Reagan tell it to you.
Those people told you for days in advance that if the university sought to go ahead with that construction, they were going to physically destroy the university. Now, why did you
negotiate many times?
Negotiate? What is to negotiate? What is?
Well, the university is a public institution.
That's right. But the university,
its own community, and for the community of Berkeley that live around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
There it is. There it is. So to give a little historical context to that, there was a city park, or there was a park that a lot of people, it was just open land, and it had gone into, turned into kind of a community park. And what ended up happening is the university decided that they were going to build on that site, and they were going to remove and destroy essentially this community park that had been created. Because again, the university, while they own the property, they kind of just left it there. They didn't really do anything with it. And so when they decided to go forward with the construction, what ended up happening is the community that was surrounding the university essentially rebelled. Because again, keep in mind, Berkeley is the birthplace of the majority of the leftist Marxist ideas that occurred down there. Now, what ended up happening is the construction began, they started to build, and the university students and the surrounding neighborhoods rioted. And that particular news conference was done in order to kind of discuss what was coming next. Now, one of the things that did not, Ronald Reagan didn't want to bring in the National Guard, but that press conference convinced him that it was essentially a foregone conclusion. And he walked out of that with the idea that, yeah, we're bringing in the National Guard. The National Guard was brought in after that. And yeah, but the point that Ronald Reagan is making is like, they told you were going to, meaning the protesters, they told you they were going to do this. And you, who are the adults in the room, the ones who are supposed to be more intelligent, gave them the idea, gave these children, these young kids, these young adults, the idea that they can just pick and choose whatever laws they decide that they want to follow. Doesn't that seem a little reminiscent of perhaps like the BLM riots and the Chaz Chop areas in Seattle? Yeah, that was when Ronald Reagan was the strong one. He didn't turn into the grandfatherly figure that we know of him when it comes to like the president, the sign of the president. But at the same time, though, you need to understand that Ronald Reagan had an idea, which is the same idea, ironically, well, maybe not ironically, but it's the same idea that Trump brings, which is essentially peace through strength. And the belief in the power of deterrence is a huge factor. But that being said, all of that taken care of, yeah, I would recommend, if you get a chance, go and see the movie Reagan. There are, those two kind of show up in the movie. I didn't really give anything away there. No spoiler alerts. But I would definitely go and take a look at that. I would for sure go and follow along. And by the way, too, if you are of interest, of any interest in history and want to hear the great communicators speak and listen to what great speeches can be, go and check out reaganlibrary.gov. That's reaganlibrary.gov. And they have all of his speeches, his major speeches from 1964, which includes A Time to Choose, all the way up to 1989. And you can go and either listen or look at the text. There also, too, you can hit the Reagan Library account on YouTube, and you can watch and see some of the speeches that were done on video as well. There's two people that I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, no matter what, that if somebody asked me today, out of all the people, living or dead, if there was any one individual that you would want to go and have lunch with or spend time with or talk to, Ronald Reagan is definitely on the list, as well as Rush Limbaugh. Absolutely, without a doubt. I would have loved to have spoken to both of them when they were alive. To me, it would have been fantastic. Anyway, rest in peace. Rest in peace for both of them. All right. Speaking of resting in peace, do we have the 4 people who were killed here recently in Georgia? The only reason that I bring it up is because apparently now the the state has decided to charge the father of the Georgia school shooter with second-degree murder. And here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand, and CNN actually had an article that kind of lines this out. But we're finding out more and more about the shooter, and one of the things that we're finding out is that his family life, although he himself potentially may not have been abused, his family life wasn't exactly the best. His mother and father got divorced, and it was a not an amicable divorce, according to reports. In fact, the mother apparently got hooked on drugs, was arrested for drugs, was arrested for keying the father's truck. The father kept the mother away from the children. And there's a bunch of other factors that are involved here. But one of the reasons as to why they brought the father in is because of the fact that he actually bought the AR-15 that was used for his son. And although he claimed that his son didn't have access to the weapons without supervision, there apparently is an account that is allegedly tied to the perpetrator, and I'm not going to show his face or his name. I don't want to sensationalize him, but apparently he had a Discord account that was tied to it, and there were pictures of weapons that showed up, pictures of the AR-15 and at least one other weapon that showed up. Then a year ago, where he had posted that he was planning on doing a mass shooting. And also, not to mention the fact that he also said in that same post that he wasn't going to do it for like a year or 2 or 3. So, yeah. Anyway, there is also a suggestion as well that the young man who did this, and I don't even know why I want to call him a man, but the young perpetrator who did this also had a alleged fascination with transgenderism. Now, I'm not saying that transgenderism turns you into a violent offender. However, that does give an indication of potential mental challenges within his background. And so we're going to find out more, obviously, as time goes on. But the father was arrested and arraigned in court, I believe, today. And he's also facing some other charges in connection with the shooting as well. So there were signs, folks. There were signs. And this is one of the things that I have been commenting on, railing about, mentioning every single time one of these things with these horrific acts happen. It's not as though this comes out of the blue, people. There are complete signs all leading all the way up to the event itself. And in fact, the FBI even mentioned to the school, hey, when they investigated that original online threat back in 2023, they even suggested you better keep an eye on that kid. So once again, folks, we have, there's commonalities. There are commonalities between every single one of these mass shooters. They all have familial problems at home. They all have some history of knowledge to the law enforcement and the authorities or other authorities. They all have a potential brush, at the very least, with mental illness in some way, shape, or form. And the other thing, too, is that their weapons are pretty much, they were obtained through other means, not by them buying them directly necessarily. Or even if they did, they were still legal at the time to do it, to purchase them. But again, there's some suggestion that this, and again, there's a lot to this as we continue to unravel and unpack this, but there are a lot of commonalities, and going and adding a law or banning assault style weapons, which, by the way, assault is a verb, not an adjective. So there is no such thing as an assault weapon. You commit assault. You don't have it as a descriptor. But all of that being the case, the Democrats and all of the gun control sycophants are not looking at the real issues that cause these kinds of things. And they won't. They refuse to look at the real issues. Because if they do, they'll find that a lot of their policies and ideology are the cause. Okay, so moving on to a not quite so much more happy thing, but something different here, which is a sin. Oh, thank you, Elaine. That is awesome. You're like all over the place. Elaine is on YouTube right now, and she's pointing out X and Rumble and on YouTube. She's watching all over the place. So thank you for that. I do appreciate that. But anyway, let me move on to this. Here once again, even though the federal government wants to convince you that our economy is doing all these wonderful things, it's not. So here in Breitbart, weaker than expected, the U.S. only added 142,000 jobs in August, and earlier months were once again revised down. And manufacturing jobs are crashing. Wait, I thought Joe Biden said he was bringing back manufacturing to the U.S. What's happening? Why would manufacturing jobs crash if we're, ramping up on our manufacturing? Oh, wait. That's the Biden-Harris administration, by the way. Economists had originally forecast about 160,000 jobs for the month of August. We only ended up with 142,000. The prior month's job estimate was revised down from 114,000 to 89,000, and the June figure was revised down by 60,000 to just 118,000. Unemployment rate dipped from 4.2% to 4.3% in July. The labor force participation rate remained at 62.7%. Now, see, this is the problem. They look at all of these job numbers and they think, oh, yeah, we added all these jobs. What they don't seem to understand is our labor force participation rate is actually one of the lowest that it's ever been. And it's 62%. We're running less than 2/3 full capacity for participation. This is not what we need. Oh, and by the way, that wonderful, hey, your average hourly earnings are like outpacing inflation. Well, according to the piece here, average hourly earnings for all employees on private non-farm payrolls increased by 14 cents to $35.21. Well, I don't see how that's going to fight that 20% or 25% increase in things like, food, groceries, rent, stuff like that. Over the past year, average hourly earnings have increased by 3.8%, of course. They say this is higher than expected. So manufacturing sector jobs down here at the bottom shed 24,000 jobs, 6 times the expectation. The July figure, however, was revised up to show the growth of 6,000 jobs rather than the earlier estimate of 1,000. But the manufacturing sector obviously is shedding jobs. So here we are. Also, too, keep in mind that the other piece out of this puzzle that a lot of people don't seem to realize is the fact that you have automation taking over. And with the development of AI, you're going to have a lot of these repetitive actions within manufacturing that may have been done by a human being before are going to get taken over. And so you're going to see things go potentially even worse as time goes on with the new technology increasing. All right, folks, that's it for me for tonight. Do me a favor, if you appreciate what I do, please head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account if you don't already have one, and make sure that you, when you sign in, that you search up the American Perspective channel. And, of course, hit that green follow button so you can be notified every time that I go live. Also, too, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, both there as well as all of my outlets, any of those likes, rumbles, thumbs up, whatever you want to call them, because all of that can help expand the exposure of this show to more and more people. I would love to see this thing take off. Tomorrow night is Saturday. Saturday, I broadcast an hour later. So that means 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.